Hello and welcome to Sin and Steel, the heavy metal podcast. I'm your host, Sarah-Tonin, and today we're joined by Aidan of Aidan Night and the Revenants. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Sarah.
So to start off with a bit of an introduction, so Aidan Night and the Revenants from Queensland, Australia, as described on your Instagram page, is goth metal band for vampire freaks and misfits, which I feel like is a really fitting tagline. So what can you tell us about the origin of the band, your role within it, and like what you've set out to do?
Yeah, well, I started the band back in 2022, but I'd been writing songs for the band for quite a few years prior to that. And I honestly, I couldn't find musicians to work with for like the longest time. Like, trying to find a drummer was honestly like the hardest thing. And so, I was really into doom metal and stoner rock and that type of thing, but because I couldn't find a drummer, I started thinking about, okay, maybe I need to start learning how to, produce things on my own. And that eventually just led me to getting really into like goth and dark wave music. I released a couple of songs under an old artist name, which were primarily like goth, dark wave, and industrial. Okay. But I kind of realized that, there were like all of these heavier songs that I'd written before that I really missed and wanted to include. I also really missed the experience of having a full band and, just the energy that comes with like having a full band for live shows. Yeah. So that led me to starting Aidan Night in the Revenants, so I could kind of like bring it all together. And so on stage, my role is kind of like the front person. I do vocals, I engage the crowd, and I've got my band, the Revenants, with me, playing all of the other instruments. But the band is largely like a solo project. So I write everything. I oversee the creative direction of everything. I write all the songs, all the instrumental parts. I usually write and record all of the demos on my own. Then I get the band members to come in and then record it in the studio. But as for what my goal was with the band, honestly, like just when I first started the band, I didn't really have like any specific goals in mind. My goal was just to make the music that I wanted to make, but I had so many different styles that I wanted to write in. I had written all of this like goth, dark wave, post-punk stuff. Then I'd written all of this like heavier, stoner rock, psychedelic rock, stoner doom type stuff, and then kind of just a mix of everything else of like alternative rock, grunge, and it was basically just the combination of all of the different bands and artists that I'd been influenced by. But I really wanted to bring it all together, and I feel like there's this kind of unspoken rule within like the heavy music space or just the alternative music space in general that like you're not supposed to blend like totally different genres together. And there's like a little bit of to be honest, like I feel like there's a little bit of resistance and a little bit of gatekeeping around it. And
there definitely can be.
And I feel like bands that do try and do it like they try not to stray from it too much because they don't want to alienate their audience. They'll kind of just drip feed it through, but they're not really like doing what they really, really love to do. But I think that like honestly, like I feel like the greatest bands are the ones that have they're constantly pushing and evolving their sound. You at the end of the day, like you have to make the music that you want to make. You can't really worry about what other, what you think people's reactions are going to be to it.
So many of the subgenres that we know and love wouldn't exist if people didn't push outside of like the norm. And I know some people don't like all the different labels that come with different categories. I fucking
mm,
love it. I just think it's really fun to pick things
mm,
apart and try to,
mm,
find the influences, even if it's a bit of a joke sometimes about like, oh, there's
mm.
tech death and mellow death and brutal
Yeah,
death and,
yeah,
but,
yeah, 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 yeah.
but we wouldn't have so many of those mixed and awesome subgenres if people didn't push. But like you said, sometimes it is very contained within what kind of matches with that. Unless you're labeled as prog. Prog bands are allowed to do whatever the fuck they want, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this, and that for me, like once I realized that, all of this stuff around like, like you have to stick to a certain genre and you have to sound a certain way and you can't ever like stray too far from that. I just realized like, at the end of the day, like, I'm doing it because this is what I love to do. I'm doing it
Yep.
because I love music and I love writing in so many different styles and I love so many different styles of music. So I honestly just didn't want to limit myself. So
Yep.
my goal now really is just to constantly push the boundaries, like
Yep.
with what we release, every single release. So we could do like a sludge doom metal song, for one single, and then the next one could be more like new metal, metalcore. Next one could be just plain old darkwave. But
Yep.
and stylistically they might all be different, but at the end of the day, it's all still the Revenants.
Yep.
So that's the common theme that connects like all of the different songs and styles. So yeah, that's ultimately my goal, like
Yep.
musically. And so far I feel like we've done pretty good, like with constantly pushing the genres that we that we
Yeah.
put out.
That's awesome. No, I think that's great. And it just shows, it leans back into just that artistic side, right? That creative side, just going with what works and what makes sense for you. So that's really good. Now, obviously, you touched on it a little bit, but everything that you do is like dripping in goth imagery, and I mean that both in the visuals and the sound.
Mm,
Werewolves, vampires, graveyards,
mm,
all the goth things that we love.
mm.
I was curious about what draws you to goth culture, that sound, that imagery, and those themes.
Yeah. Well, I think like goth, like what really draws me to goth culture is, and I think this is true for a lot of people, is I grew up in a pretty religious family when I was younger. My mother's side of the family is from El Salvador,
Yep.
and so I was raised a lot by my grandmother, who is very very like devoutly Catholic. Like you know she'll do like the rosary, like
Yep.
do the rosary beads every night and all of that type of stuff. And so my childhood was, to be honest, like very very sheltered, and there were a lot of things that were essentially just off limits.
Yeah.
So uh, I think once I decided that I didn't really want to keep doing that anymore, it just naturally made me curious, and it was something that I wanted to explore more. So pretty much once I stopped going to church, and then I was in the library like every week, trying to read books on like the supernatural and like witchcraft and all that type of stuff. And that just kind of naturally led me to, I guess, horror movies and vampire movies, that type of thing. I really loved the Underworld series with
Yep.
Kate Beckinsale. Like I love
That
Interview with
was
the
a
Vampire.
favorite of teenage Sarah.
Yeah, yeah. Reading like
Bisexual
creepy
awakening.
romance. Yeah, totally. And so I don't know, like I I was just naturally just so intrigued by it. I think
Yep.
because it was something that I wasn't exposed to,
Yeah.
like when I was younger. So it naturally just created this allure for me. And I think one of the things that I really really loved about goth music and goth culture is it finds the beauty in the darkness. Like you know it kind of it accepts darkness as like a natural part of life. It doesn't shy away from it. It doesn't try and hide it.
Yep.
It really celebrates it in a way, without it being like evil or scary or
Yep.
whatever. It's just it recognizes it as a part of life. And I think too, like coming from a Catholic background, I also just really love how goth music and culture subverts religious imagery.
Yeah.
But in a really dark, like romantic kind of way.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Catholicism but horny.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
And what's kind of that community like in Brisbane? It looks like you guys kind of that you pack out a lot of different bars around there. Looks like you have a blast at some of those live shows you do. So what's that community been like for you?
Yeah. So the goth community in Brisbane, like it's interesting. Like there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people. I would say like in Brisbane who are like into goth music and goth
Yep.
culture. There's like a very big alternative crowd
Yeah.
here, but uh, you don't really tend to see or like heaps of them at our local shows and stuff.
Yep.
Like you'll see them
It's
at
too
bigger
hot.
events
Your
for
makeup would melt right off.
yeah, and I think that's the thing is like it's the weather just doesn't really like suit going like in full like goth outfits. And
Yeah.
I think also too like you know goths can tend to be like pretty shy and introverted as well. Contrary to like what people thinking that like goths are all like mean and scary. Like no, they're just very very shy. But
I mean, there's
I think it's
alt people and metalheads in general. It's the same thing, isn't it? There's an assumption of
exactly.
them all being, yeah, some sort of scary and mean, and they're all just, not all, but most of them are generally lovely people.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that like there's definitely a like a small but thriving like community of people that are actually like going out to shows, putting on
Yeah.
their own event. And I'm definitely starting to notice it pop up more and more, like seeing more, I guess, like dark alternative arts events and club nights and stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm slowly working on a goth themed like club night with a friend of
Awesome.
mine, which we'll hopefully be doing later on in the year. I can't say too much about it right now, but yeah, it's something that we've got in the works, which will hopefully like be another thing that helps build that
Yeah.
community in Brisbane.
That'll be awesome. You guys like planning to play that, I assume?
Uh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't say too much on it,
Yeah.
but yeah, like we're definitely planning on performing it as well.
Nice. What sort of venues have you been playing? Are there any favorites?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think my two favorite venues so far have been PFR Lounge,
Yep.
which is in the Valley on, I think it's Ann Street.
Yep.
Uh, Love that place. The guy who owns it, I believe his name is Rob. Super
Yep.
super cool guy. He's really like passionate about supporting local bands. So
Awesome.
yeah, we've always had a blast playing there. Also Greaser.
Yep.
Greaser has really like supported us. And that was where we played our most recent single launch,
Yep.
where it was just like crazy. Like there were just so many people there, like that came out on a
That's
Wednesday night, which
awesome.
just like yeah, it honestly blew my mind like how many people rocked up. But
Yep.
yeah, the sound person there, Bo, is absolutely lovely. Bar staff are all awesome, so we love playing there too.
Nice. Whereabouts is Greaser?
Greaser is on Brunswick Street, so it's
Yep.
kind of just up from the train station.
Yeah, cool. There's a few spots I've been to in the valley that are really good, and I've seen. It's been a while since I've been down there, but I remember lots of cool little events happening down there. Heavy metal garage sale was at
Oh,
one
really?
little place at one stage. Yeah, I got a few t-shirts. There's a cool artist up there, Natty B. I think she was doing stuff under the brand of like Spunk Valley at one stage, and she was doing she does really cool artwork. A bunch of murals in that area by her, in a lot of venues and stuff. But I remember getting a few shirts and stuff of her artwork, and yeah, really really cool spots in the valley.
Yeah, I think that like if for a lot of people like outside of Brisbane, I think probably for people like down in Sydney and Melbourne and stuff, there's probably this idea that like Brisbane, there's not much going on up there, and like if you don't know if you don't know people, it can be a little bit harder to find. But
Yeah.
like if you spend a little bit of time, like going out to shows, making friends, getting to know
Yeah.
people that are in the scene, then you'll find out there's always like so many things happening. And
Yeah.
to be honest, like my weekend like social calendar is like usually booked, and I have to like not go to stuff so that I can like work on my creative projects. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's always heaps of really fun things happening in
That's
Brisbane.
awesome. That's so good. Now you had another really cool experience, cool opportunity come up recently, which I did want to
Mm,
ask you about. You got to
mm,
participate in the Tales of a Modern Horror panel. What was that like?
mm. It was really good. Like to be honest, I was a bit nervous,
Yeah.
like leading up to it, uh, and mainly just because I was like a short notice fill-in.
Yeah.
Cassius, the host, he had a couple of artists that were meant to be at the panel pull out a couple of days before. I think due to illness and stuff. So I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare. I didn't really
Yeah.
know what to expect, but it honestly ended up being a lot of fun. And the other panelists were great. Lots of really interesting questions,
Mm.
and it was just a really good experience to be able to talk about horror and its influence on art, and I guess like how horror can influence like your work as an artist, and the themes that you can explore like within horror as a genre.
Yeah.
So that was really really fun, and it was also just like a good opportunity to engage with people on like a more, I guess, on a more personal level,
Yeah.
beyond just like playing shows or talking to people and engaging on social media.
Yeah.
Which don't get me wrong, like both of those things are fine. Like I love playing shows and I
Yeah.
love getting to engage with people online. Both of those things can be really great, but I feel like there's just something different when you can just like be in a room with people and you can talk about the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
You can get to know like other artists, and you can have these like really insightful conversations that you
Yeah.
just can't really have like any other way, because it's a curated environment that gives you the opportunity to do that. So I would like, one thing that I would love to see is I would honestly love to see more local musicians like on panels and stuff. I think that
Yeah.
it's something that we
Yeah.
should totally just do more of. Like even if it's just at a bar on a weeknight or something,
Yeah.
talking about like creative process, or the I guess ways that you navigate the music industry or the music scene. Like
Yeah.
I would really really love to see that more, because I think that especially as we move towards doing so many things online,
Mm.
doing interviews online, engaging with fans, or people who might be like our prospective audience.
Yeah.
Those opportunities to actually connect with people face to face are fewer and far between, and it's something that I think that we need to consciously put the effort in
Yeah.
to make happen. So
It's
yeah, I'm
interesting.
hoping that it's something that I can do in the future and organize.
Yeah, definitely. So the only thing I can think of that I know of in Australia that I've seen anything like that would have been, I think a few months ago, maybe, Chris McThrashy. Do you know Chris McThrashy? He's Hidden Intent, and he hosts a lot of gigs. I think he does has a few different promotional names, and he'll do gigs and festivals and stuff in a few different spots around Australia. But I think he did a bit of a panel, but I don't remember. It might have been targeted towards like people looking to promote themselves and how to promote your bands and how to promote shows, and it might have been geared towards those type of things specifically. I don't really remember, but that's the only thing I can think of that would be anything like that. So you're right. There's a gap there that could be really interesting. And I mean, you could do it if you had the right venue where you had gigs going anyway. You could do that before a show. Start early, have a little bit of a session that people could come to before the show if they want to. And yeah, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely, and I think that there's so many there's so many issues that we're facing as musicians and artists, or just people working like in the music industry and the creative
Mm,
industries in general, that I think it could be really valuable to
yeah.
start having those conversations in that way. Because we've got things like the real risk of mental health burnout and
Yep.
of all of that type of thing, which is affecting so many artists, and the way that social media and the algorithms and all these types of things are
Yep.
affecting our ability to connect with our listeners, and
Yep.
also expose our music to new people. I feel like there's a lot of really valuable conversations that musicians could have if we start doing this. So that's why I
Yep.
wanted to put it out there and just say, hey, I think this is a really cool idea.
That's great. If you do ever end up organizing something, I'd love to hear all about it. I'd love to hear ahead of time and, help promote if I can. But I'd love to hear how it all goes and how it works, because I think that would be, like I said, really beneficial and really interesting to see how that would all pan out.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
no,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
awesome. Now we have to talk about the new single, of course. So released
Mhm,
early
mhm.
January, titled "Wild for You." And for me, this track, like you said, you kind of express different types of sounds within different types of music. And for this one, it was a bit of a shift to me. It still has that kind of goth, dark vibes, that atmosphere, but it's moved a little bit further away from that, and it sits much more in that heavy metal space with that old school classic doom. So I guess the thing is as well, this track isn't necessarily new, is it? I believe it's something you wrote some time ago. So I'm curious to know a bit more about that. So when did you actually write this track, and was there anything in particular that influenced this more doomy sound?
Yeah, yeah. So you're right. This is actually one of my oldest songs.
Yep.
I wrote it. I wrote it. It was almost 10 years ago now. And yeah, like at that time, I was really really into doom metal and stoner rock
Yep.
and that type of thing. Um, and yeah, like I was listening to a lot of like Pentagram, Candlemass,
Yep.
Caius, Electric Wizard, all of that type of thing. I was like really, really deep into it. And so, yeah, back then I really wanted to focus. Like my goal was I wanted to start a doom metal band.
Yep.
Because I thought doom was like the coolest thing. But
It's pretty cool.
like I was saying, but like I was saying to you earlier, like I had no luck finding other musicians to start this band with.
Yep.
So I ended up just shelving it for years, and I to be honest with you, like I actually totally forgot about it.
Yep.
It wasn't until after I actually started the Revenants, and I was rehearsing, and I was looking at all the songs that I had written and songs that I wanted to incorporate, and literally just like one afternoon, um I was like at home, and I remembered, like, oh yeah, that Wild for You song. Oh yeah, like that, like, I wonder if that's going to sound good. And so, like, I honestly had no idea how it was going to turn out when I recorded the initial demo, because like when I wrote it, I this was before I had learned how to produce
Yep.
my own music. So when I wrote it, I'd only ever heard the guitar parts. Like I wrote the guitar, I wrote the vocals. I think I'd only ever heard it on an acoustic or an electric guitar. I had no idea like what the drums were gonna do, or
Yep.
anything like that. So I just sat down, like I didn't have to go to work, and I was just like, okay, all right, let's just see what happens. So I had zero expectations when I wrote it, and honestly, it really like took me by surprise. Because it just ended up sounding so much better than what I envisioned. And it was the same again when we actually went in to record it at the end of last year. You know, I was like, okay, I really want to do Wild for You. I feel like, you know, it makes sense after our last song, Sweet Temptation, to kind of push in the heavier direction and also kind of keep that that horror, you know, theme going as well. And yeah, like when I first heard back the like the original mix with the engineer, I was honestly just like blown away. So yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like I might have gone a little bit diverted from the question, but you know, doom metal is like yeah, one of my like oldest like favorite genres. You know, I always come back to it. I think it's, you know, it's really like the, like some people might disagree with me, but I feel like doom metal is kind of like the closest to the original idea of like heavy metal. When you look at a band like Black Sabbath and you know the template that they created for metal, I feel like doom metal is really just a continuation of that like classic metal template, just kind of slower and heavier. And that's the thing that I love about it.
No, I think that's great. And yeah, I wouldn't argue with that at all. I think that's like pretty much cemented in the history of metal. Again, I know that you've talked a little bit about playing with your sound and changing that over time, but is this sound something that listeners can expect more of moving forward, or just another variation of what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think so. My goal with the band is, you know, to constantly push the boundaries of with like every song that we release. So, you know, we're always putting out something that sounds new and different to what you might have heard from us before. But also at the end of the day, like doom metal is still one of my biggest influences as an artist. So, like, we'll inevitably keep coming back to it. I've actually spent the last 9 months working with a vocal coach, specifically for harsh vocals. So I could actually match the heavier material that I've been writing. So yeah, I guess in one sense, like the doom sound is just another layer of and variation of what we do, but at the same time, it's also like a key part of it. So we'll inevitably come back to it anyway.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I'll be excited to see what comes from that. With the different style of vocals and stuff that you're looking at.
Yeah, and you know, I'll also say too, like I was saying before, I was writing songs for a long time for the band before I actually found my bandmates, and a lot of the older material is definitely like more in the doom metal territory too. And I've got like all of our different songs up on our SoundCloud, which you can find through the link in our Instagram bio and stuff. So, you know, if anyone listening is curious and checking it out, like, you can definitely go and do that. As for when it'll actually come out as an official release, it'll be sometime down the line, but it'll definitely be coming back.
Yeah, nice. And is there anything else that you'd like to share about this track, whether it's the themes, the writing or recording processes, the artwork, those types of things?
That's a good question. I can't really think of anything that like really springs to mind. I think because like the process itself was so seamless. Like we recorded it at a place called King Street Studios, which is up in Redcliffe in Brisbane, a little bit further out of the city. But recorded the guy who runs it is a guy named Mick, who plays in a local band called Kill Toys. So I do want to give him a shout out because he's a fantastic like sound engineer. He's a fantastic mixing engineer. In the lead up to actually recording with him, we had a production meeting, and he really understood the sound that I was going for with the track, and he absolutely nailed the creative vision that I had for the song. So,
Nice.
I'm really grateful to him. Also, the person who did the artwork for
Yep.
the song is a guy from Indonesia,
Yep.
who is his name is Dino, I think his name is. Fantastic artist. He really nailed the vibe
Yeah.
for the work that I was going for, because I wanted something that was dark and heavy, that
Yep.
had that goth element, but was kind of moving into that more metal, uh, that metal grittiness as well. And
Yeah.
he absolutely nailed it.
That's awesome. No, it came up really nicely and it works well for the track. And what's next, or what else do you have in the works for the band? Any shows or new music you'd like to share or discuss? And you kind of touched on some new stuff a little bit. But
Yeah, so we've got a couple of shows coming up in the next few months. So we're playing March 8th at Greaser with Twisted Lullaby, who are good friends of ours, and we've played a couple of shows with them before.
yep,
And then we're also playing the 5th of April with another metal band called Terror Parade at
cool.
PFR Lounge. So yeah, like if you're in Brisbane, keep an eye out for those, and hopefully we can see you at a show. And then we're also going back into the studio this weekend, actually,
Nice.
to record. Yeah, to record our next single, Pariah,
Yep.
which will hopefully be coming out late April, early May. And fingers crossed, we'll also be working on a music video for it, which I'm in the process of organizing too. So
Awesome. A few things to look forward to then.
yeah.
And so before we finish up, where can people find you and how can they support your music?
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram. So my Instagram page is just Aidan_Night. And through there we've got the link tree to everything. So
Yeah.
we've got our music on Spotify. We've got a Bandcamp now as well, and all of
Perfect.
the different socials. And yeah, I can't really think of anything
No
else.
worries.
Is
And I'll
Yeah,
make
no.
sure that they're all linked in the description of the episode as well to make it nice and easy for people to jump across. But that's around about it. So thank you again for jumping on. I really appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah.
And thanks to all those tuning in for this episode of Sin and Steel. Make sure to do all the things like subscribe and drop a comment letting us know what you think of Wild for You. And until next time, stay metal.